Hello, I'm Michael Sample, and I'll be reviewing the documentary Understanding the Opioid Epidemic in this video. The opioid epidemic, one of the most urgent public health emergencies facing the U.S., is examined in this documentary. This criticism will include a review of the documentary, my thoughts on the topic, an assessment of the overall quality, and my final appraisal of the documentary's strength and areas for improvement. Comprehending the goal of the moving and disturbing movie, The Opioid Epidemic, is to raise awareness of the opioid issue in the U.S. The documentary, which was created and directed by a public health specialist, examines the opioid epidemic development effects on local communities and current response strategies. Numerous professionals are interviewed for the documentary, including physicians, addiction specialists, law enforcement officers, and public health specialists, such renowned addiction specialists and public health advocates Dr. Andrew Culledony. These perspectives offer a range of viewpoints on the reasons for the crisis, the hardships endured by those impacted, and structural flaws that let the outbreak get out of hand. Nearly 500,000 individuals have died from opioid overdoses in the last 20 years, which is one of the most concerning facts in the documentary. Opioids were implicated in about 70% of all drug overdoses deaths in the United States in 2019 alone. The seriousness of the epidemic and the pressing need for institutional and individual reform are highlighted by these startling statistics. With a special emphasis on Purdue Pharma and its aggravated marketing of OxyContin, the documentary examines how pharmaceutical firms contributed to the catastrophe. It also draws attention to how medical professionals overprescribed painkillers, which fueled widespread addiction. The movie also exploits the opioid epidemic's wider social and economic effects, including the toll it has taken on families, the pressure on healthcare institutions, and the rise in crime. As a spectator, I firmly feel that one of the most catastrophic public health emergencies in recent memory is the opioid crisis. In addition to presenting a sobering image of the repercussions of opioid abuse, the video exposes the serious awakenness in the healthcare system that made this pandemic possible. The documentary contains poignant moments that humanize the problem, like testimonies from people who have battled addiction and relatives of overdose victims. There are several areas that might have been covered in more detail, but overall, I think the documentary did a great job of portraying the severity and breadth of the opioid issue. The documentary could have, for instance, gone more deeply into the stories, communities that have successfully resisted the outbreak. A more positive and hopeful perspective on the crisis might have been achieved by emphasizing the effectiveness, recovery initiatives, neighborhood-based fixes, and prevention actions. Furthermore, the documentary does not thoroughly examine the issue of how the American healthcare system may be changed to avert future public health catastrophes, even as it criticizes the involvement of pharmaceutical companies in overprescribing physicians. A more thorough examination of legislative remedies, such as improved oversight of pharmaceutical firms or the creation of safer substitutes for painkillers, may have given the discussion significant new angle. In many respects, the documentary is of remarkable quality because of its organization. Even people who are unfamiliar with the subject may understand it. The narrative is made more authentic by the use of in-person interviews with professionals and impacted people, and the images, which combine data-driven visualizations with personal accounts, help to highlight how urgent the problem is. Generally speaking, the documentary moves well from one subject to the next without overloading the audience. The seriousness of the problem is brought home by the provision of clear, occasionally unpleasant statistics. For instance, interviews with those who are directly affected by addiction, including parents who have children have died from overdose, are featured with depictions of overdose deaths. The documentary fair presentation of the opioid issue from all angles is one of its strong points. Instead of assigning all the responsibility to one group, it emphasizes how several elements, like the pharmaceutical firms, healthcare professionals, and social systems, are interrelated and contribute to the epidemic. One criticism, though, would be the documentary's scant attention to potential fixes, although it mentions steps to address the epidemic, like the creation of addiction treatment programs and the push of legislative changes. The movie should have done a better job of analyzing these efforts given the scope of the issue. It is imperative that viewers feel empowered to advocate for change or take action in addition to understanding the situation. Comprehending the opioid epidemic is a powerful and enlightening documentary. It is successful in bringing attention to a serious public health problem that destroys communities and impacts millions of people. Those most impacted by the opioid crisis are given a voice in the video, which paints a powerful, if upsetting, picture of the problem. Expert testimony and firsthand accounts are used in the documentary to vividly illustrate the topic in a way that is both thought-provoking and emotionally compelling. The movie is successful in making a complex subject understandable to a wide range of viewers, particularly those who might not be aware of the severity of the opioid crisis. Even though the documentary does a great job of describing the origins and consequences of the epidemic, it falls short in providing information about potential remedies. It is a lost chance that there hasn't been a thorough examination on how the American healthcare system might be changed to avoid future disasters. To sum up, everyone who wants to comprehend the scope of the opioid epidemic and the human cost of it should watch Understanding the Opioid Epidemic documentary. The video offers a vital starting point for additional discussions about how to fight the epidemic and assist those who are impacted. Even though it could have gone into greater detail about possible remedies, it is a critical step in comprehending and tackling one of the most urgent public health issues of our day. I appreciate you viewing my analysis of the Understanding the Opioid Epidemic.